Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Extraterrestrials Part 5 Note. This section generally deals with the existence of various extraterrestrial civilizations, their histories, societies, cultures, behaviors, technologies, etc. An excellent summary of the UFO, extraterrestrial phenomenon, is given by Billy Meier in his article Extraterrestrials, found in Contact Report 257. Drawings and photorealistic renditions of some extraterrestrials may be seen at the end of Contact Reports 830 and 836. A list of extraterrestrials who have contacted Billy Meier can be found at the FIGU website. Contact Report 368.
I feel impelled to discuss a few things with you and also to devote myself to chess, if you are willing.
Sure, it will be my pleasure.
Contact Report 369.
Our spiritual leadership has conducted a survey among the entire population of Era, which includes not only the adults but also the children, with the aim of finding a suitable term for the mission that you and all your fellow comrades in arms are fulfilling in spite of all the adversities that are being faced. The decision was based on a suggestion made by an 11-year-old girl who felt that a term like Silent Revolution of Truth was appropriate for you, your comrades in arms, and your mission. This suggestion was generally accepted and now finds its way into our chronicle. There is also the erroneous view that tourism in foreign countries brings profitable growth, earnings, and prosperity for their people. But this is not true because poverty persists among the population in all countries, because in reality it is only a few from the population, and above all big business people who earn a lot from tourism. And of these big business people, it is often those who come from rich industrial countries and make enormous profits with hotels and sports facilities, etc., in the poor countries. In very early times, our ancestors acted in the same way, creating the same problems as you have called them and as they have existed on Earth for many years. Since the populations of the rich industrialized countries have large financial resources that allow them to flood foreign countries with tourists. The whole thing should be stopped in the way that our ancestors handled it and solved all the related problems, which banned and dissolved all the travel companies and thus also stopped all the mass tourism, which caused a lot of disaster, such as when natural disasters destroyed tourist resorts and killed countless humans. This was indeed the solution to all problems, from which a worldwide cooperation of all political and economic concerns developed, which led to a worldwide uniform mechanization, politics and economy, as well as a uniform world government, which finally led to spiritual leadership and the advice of the High Council. Since then, some 52,000 years ago, peace and harmony has reigned among all the humans of our world and throughout our Federation. Of course, there were many other problems to be solved, which would go too far to mention, but when reason triumphed and the beginning was made, one problem after another was solved and resolved. The whole process of reason lasted 101 to 36 years, but then everything was sealed.
Contact Report 370.
With us, the task of disaster relief and the like was placed very early on in the administration of the state, whereby the police and security forces were trained for this purpose, made responsible and remunerated through the normal state revenues. Donations collected for relief operations were used down to the last cent for what they were intended for. And today, as we no longer have any financial resources whatsoever, the regular law and order and security bodies are still responsible for relief operations in the event of disasters. Of course, we also have many volunteers who carry out valuable operations in the event of disasters. But these are managed by the competent bodies because there must be a certain order on which any real assistance depends.
Then there are also natural disasters in your country?
Not on Era itself, because there everything is kept under control and properly organized. But there are still different worlds in our widely ramified federation, on which often great natural disasters occur, where great damage is done and loss of life is to be lamented. Here we provide organized help through our law and order and security forces, with the participation of volunteers who carry out their duties voluntarily and selflessly.
So this means that when you speak of you are not talking about Era, but about other worlds which belong to your federation, and which are not yet as far along in terms of mastering the forces of nature as you Erans are. Is that right?
Yes, that is the meaning of my words. On Era, we have everything so controlled, organized, and legislated in relation to natural disasters that no one can be harmed if nature allows its forces to play. We do not influence nature in such a way that we would completely tame it, but the influence is only in responsible forms of weather formation, etc. So the forces of nature can also unfold on Era, but they are tamed in their worst forms so that no damage is done to human property and no human lives are lost.
Contact Report 376.
Look here. I got some good chocolate from Hani, from Ava's mother, which I have to share with you. So if you want to help yourself, please.
Thank you, I like the chocolate. Pay Hannah my thanks.
Contact Report 380.
We received the old Playaran alphabet a long time ago, but the new Playaran characters are unknown to us. Although I have seen them on various occasions in your giant spaceship, and in the beam ships, I do not understand them. Could you please dictate me the new Playaran alphabet, which has completely different characters than the old Playaran alphabet?
That is right. About 4,000 years ago, 4,012 years ago to be exact, the old alphabet was replaced by a new one, which is different from the old one. Of course, I can give you the characters. If you want to copy them, you can read them here on this little device.
Contact Report 382.
But first, I would like to come back to what we talked about on the 13th of March 1999 in relation to the video with the statements of the group members. This is also connected with a wish on our part. Because we want to broadcast the completed work on Era to the entire Era population through our planet-wide information channels, because a great many requests have been received from the entire Era population regarding the fact that they would like to get to know all group members and their experiences, etc. in this way. It has also been the case for many years now that our worldwide efforts of clarification and surveillance, in this regard, have not produced any positive results, and therefore no contacts between terrestrial human beings and extraterrestrials have been recorded. These clarifications are without any doubt, because our monitoring in this regard is absolutely faultless, because our apparatuses and devices register all foreign to Earth mental vibrations of acute activities, but also of telepathic nature. Therefore, nothing can escape us in this respect. If communications between Earth foreigners and Earth humans had taken place in the last major period of time, then this would have been recorded by our automatic recording devices and would have become known to us. This, in addition to the fact that we have always made individual clarifications with regard to all persons who claimed and still claim to have had or still have contact with extraterrestrials in any way. But the results concerning such contacts are consistently negative to this day, and that is absolutely clear. It is no different with extraterrestrial flying objects, because also with regard to these we have built up a global surveillance network a few months ago so that no objects can enter or leave the airspace without being registered by us. Until recently this was different. Because we had not yet installed the necessary equipment, consequently some foreign objects escaped our attention in recent years, but this has nothing to do with the registration of foreign mental vibrations, which we have been controlling worldwide for more than 82 years. Therefore, we are also informed about when and where contacts between Earth humans and Earth foreigners have actually taken place. During this time, their number, you accepted, applies to only 8 such contacts. But of all those who claim that they have or have had such contacts, only one is who openly admitted the truth and came forward, the American Daniel Fry. All others remain silent to the public about their contacts. And what else is to be said about extraterrestrial flying objects? They have entered Earth's airspace very sparsely since 1984. What has been observed since then of unknown flying objects were usually, with very few exceptions, secret military or official flying objects of terrestrial origin.
Contact Report 386 Najdeska. What you say regarding the female sex on the Earth is known to us on error, but incomprehensible, for we do not use to have our faces or our body parts surgically altered in order to appear more beautiful, young or younger. We find it a great honor to grow old with dignity and to bear the marks of age. So even the mention of age does not cause us any problems, as I can also tell you my age of 422 years. My task and activity is not an elevated one, for I am a simple woman, and also work in a simple way in a monitoring plant of natural food production, together with my husband. We have 3 children, 2 daughters and 1 son, all grown up and working with Ishwish-Tar in his big flying machine. On Earth, you call my family task, to my knowledge, housework or housewife, while my other task and activity is based on the supervision of food production. To be more precise, I am a trained gardener and am responsible for planting and caring for and harvesting natural food. In other words, it can be explained that I carry out my activity in a very large vegetable cultivation plant.
Why, Ptah, does Najdesha speak of you as Ishwish Ptah? That's new to me, because I thought that it wasn't usual for you to mention the titles or something. Najdesha. I just like to call him Ishwish Ptah, like many others do. But still I don't understand.
When someone in our country speaks in the manner of Najdesha, it is the same as when we speak to each other with my friend or dear friend. So it is a matter of dignified naming, but this has nothing to do with the fact that people on Earth address each other with titles, which is nonsensical.
Contact Report 388.
I myself am a great philatelist and have owned all postage stamps of all earthly states since such stamps have existed at all. So, I also own all postage stamps, as well as all stamps that have ever been used privately and by transport companies, etc.
Contact Report 390.
We agreed I would come a little earlier, so we still have time to play chess.
Yes, that is what we agreed.
Well, something else pleasant happened in the last days and nights as well, as Florina and Enjana told me, who moved around the center on various occasions during the day. They also observed that around the main building and in the trees and bushes in the house tree garden, many songbird species feel comfortable and have built their nests, where they do their breeding business and raise their young. Among them are also various species of migratory birds, which can only rarely be observed in Switzerland. They have also observed roe deer, foxes, martens, badgers, dormice, and a trusty hare, some of which can reach as far as the house. They have also observed 4 squirrels, which you fed at the house and which have become quite trusting. In this regard, Florina and Njana have on several occasions observed how you fed these small animals by tapping the floor with nuts and holding a nut in your hand, where the squirrels took it away. Other center residents could do the same, as well as 2 children who were in the center. Florina and Njana have recorded these events and your bird and animal life, which we do not have on Era, and which we will show to our humans via the remote viewing systems, on devices. It will be a joy and surprise to our humans to see what a little paradise the Simyase Silver Star Center really is, not only in terms of the whole environment, but also in terms of the bird and animal life. Also different lizards, beetles, butterflies and honeysuckers, also pigeon-tails, but also a lot of insects and beautiful night owls, like moths, etc., 2 owls, several bats, an eagle owl and a normal one, as well as a barn owl together with different day birds of prey, like buzzards, falcons, sparrowhawks, hawks, and kites, which are unknown in their earthly forms here on Era, have captured Florina and Njana on their devices. If you have no more questions, then we can still go outside and walk around a bit, where we can talk. Afterwards, we can play a game of chess together.
Contact Report 391.
Good. Then I would like to have a private conversation over a game of chess.
I am very pleased. Here's the chess game. So let us do it.
Contact Report 393.
Your writings and books are not only read and studied by the few of us who know the German language, but also by very many other people on Era, on Seder, Nishan, Duron, and Druan.
But surely they do not speak German, do they?
No, of course not! Your and the group members' writings and books will be translated into our languages and distributed through the public information and teaching medium. Thus, everything can be read and studied by everyone on our homeworlds. Manara, in fact, your writings and books are taught, read, and studied by all Federation peoples. But Naubta has just announced himself on my device here. He will be here shortly.
Contact Report 402.
Are there actually prophets on Era and on the worlds of the Federation? And if so, how do people feel about them? We have never talked about this before, so I therefore know nothing about it. But what I do know is that on Era there is only one direction of philosophy, and it is oriented towards the creative laws, which are taught by spiritual leadership and are learned and followed by the people at their own discretion and will. Consequently, there are no sects and no gurus like here on Earth. But what about the non-Playaran races of your Federation?
We have actually never talked about that. Yes, from time to time, wise prophets appear here and throughout the Federation, giving prophetic instructions to the peoples, which are actually followed by every people. Our prophets, just like the earthly prophets, show us what negative things will happen in the future as a result of the behavior of the peoples, if the wise advice is not followed, because all our peoples have a great respect for them. This, besides the fact that they are also instructive in all things of life, as well as in the creative and natural laws and commandments, as is also proper to spiritual leadership and its duty. So in this respect we can speak of an equality of our and the earthly prophets. Our wise prophets are held in high esteem by all nations and are respected in venerability. And now, as far as the various numerous peoples of our Federation are concerned, it must be said that some of them are connected to the philosophy of creation and thus also to the teachings of the Spirit, while others are only on the way to becoming so or still represent purely human ideological ideas, but have nevertheless developed a very high level of evolution.
Contact Report 407.
I will visit you on the 5th of January to spend an hour in chess with you and give you new predictions.
Contact Report 410.
The direct ancestors of the yellow races, as the races of China and Japan are called with you on Earth, came to Earth 25,194 years ago, counted from today on, and settled in the areas of today's China and Japan. Their very distant ancestors were at very early times or millions of years, like the white, red and brown races, partly refugees from the Sirius areas which were shifted to the Dern space-time structure. The yellow races first settled in distant regions beyond the Sun or Central Sun, where they founded large races in the Nissan system on a planet called Kudra and created a huge overpopulation. As a result, in addition to the fact that the planet was slowly becoming uninhabitable, a great emigration took place about 2.4 million years ago, with large masses migrating and settling in the Lyra systems on this side of the central sun on a neighboring planet of Lassan. Their planet was called Nisan. These systems and planets in the Lyra regions were also offset to our space-time structure by fractions of a second or seconds, whereas the Nisan system and its planets, thus also Kudra, beyond the galaxy belong to the Dern space-time structure. Now it must still be said that about 2.4 million years ago, when the emigrants separated from Kudra and moved to the Lyra regions, a certain part also came to Earth and settled already in the areas of today's China and Japan, where also already Earth-born human beings existed. The early emigrants from the Kudra peoples who settled on Earth were left to their fate without any technical achievements, because the transport ship that should have brought the technical materials never arrived on Earth, but remained lost. Thus, the immigrants were also deprived of the technology that would have enabled them to contact the emigrants in the Lyra systems. This resulted in them being forgotten. 25,994 years ago, Nissan was once again overpopulated, and larger groups of emigrants were formed to investigate other emigrants in the past. So they also came across the Earth and the areas of today's China and Japan, which resulted in migrations to these areas on the Earth and the resettlement of today's China and Japan, including the merging with the very distant descendants of the former emigrants and with the Earthborn. These later immigrants came to Earth by popular decree, free of any technology, to find a new beginning, which should prevent another problem of overpopulation from arising. Nevertheless, the peoples retained their knowledge and their sense of invention, and consequently, despite the lack of technology, they continued to make technical progress, albeit in a way that no longer corresponded to the old technical forms. The tendency towards overpopulation has continued to this day. It should also be mentioned that the two yellow races were never on good terms with each other, which is why they were constantly engaged in strife, which often led to armed conflicts.
Contact Report 411.
The first question is about how humans die on Era, because you do not know any more diseases that could cause death. The second question is about the care of humans who are in need of care due to accidents, etc., or in old age. We have never talked about this before, so I myself am not aware of it and would be grateful for an answer.
In fact, our health care and health hygiene are so highly developed in every respect that we no longer know any diseases in our world. Nevertheless, we must protect ourselves from germs when we come into contact with other humans from other worlds and with the conditions of other worlds. We are generally only immune to all kinds of diseases that existed on our world, but not to diseases of other worlds. So for us, immunizing protective measures are necessary when we enter other worlds, which also applies to the Earth. But this does not cause us any problems, because our medical knowledge has allowed us to protect ourselves against all germs for a very long time. And that brings me to your question. In fact, humans no longer die of any diseases in our country, but usually only as a result of old age or, which unfortunately can also happen, as a result of accidents. Normally, about 94% of all accident injuries can be healed by our medical science and medical practice, but unfortunately there are also those cases where no medical art of healing can help anymore. If injuries require a longer period of recovery, medical professionals are available to provide all necessary care until the injuries are completely healed. However, these cases are rare, because usually injuries of all kinds can be healed within minutes or hours, including fractures of the bones, as you know from your own experience. If care is necessary, it is not provided in hospitals, which we have not had for a long time, but each injured person is cared for in their own home by specialists. And as far as dying in old age and the state of health of the Aarons is concerned, it has to be said that such signs of old age, as they are given with the terrestrial human being, are no longer true with us. Consequently, all humans on our world are in good physical condition up to old age, and there are no complaints of old age. Consequently, they die in old age as a result of old age itself because the vital functions fail. Thus, except for causes of accidents, no more humans die of diseases in our world, but this only applies directly to Era and to a few races of the Federation, while the majority of them have not yet reached our level in all relations. The average age of us Aarons is 1,050 years, which is also equal to the earthly years. The races of our Federation, on the other hand, have average ages between 248 and 793 years.
Aha. Then the Earth humans are still very much at a disadvantage to be accepted into your Federation, if that would be possible at all. The average age of your Federation is probably based on the fact that they have reached this high age through a corresponding evolution of consciousness, through which they have got everything under control, including technical and medical science, etc., through which they have achieved a longer lifespan.
That is correct.
Contact Report 412.
But now, my friend, I feel like competing with you in chess and having a private conversation with you. And if you have some chocolate here, then...
Sure, just a minute. Here, my son, you can feast on this.
Contact Report 424.
Another question regarding your Federation. You once said that it stretches over many dimensions or space-time structures, and over 50 million light-years. May I ask you, how many different dimensions your Federation consists of?
And it has to be said in regard to our Federation that it is spread out over 3 dimensions, and that our 2 dimensions, ours and yours, are included.
Contact Report 426.
I did not have a long time because I listened to the music playing on the radio. It was uplifting for me.
Contact Report 428.
Aha, but how about the strolling on our terrain by you and your Confederation members?
That is part of each of us pleasures, and we do not want to miss it, even if we have to exercise caution.
Of course, but you are always welcome. The Acid guys, the Trilans too.
They will be the ones who will probably walk most frequently on your terrain in the near term.
Ah, then our car owners can be happy again when the little ones delight the paint of the cars with their little fingers. But that does not anger us.
It is their habit to fathom things tactilely with their fingers.
Contact Report 436.
Can we do a chess game afterwards, because I feel like it? Also, I would be grateful for some chocolate if you have some here.
It is obvious, the chess game as well as the chocolate. One moment. Here, my friend. With best regards from Marianne. She always provides me with it.
The chocolate is good, thank Marianne for that.
Contact Report 438.
Now the question is, what percentage of water and land surface does ERA have?
Of course I can answer this question, because it is part of my knowledge. So I can say that ERA has a total water area of 55.7% and a total land area of 44.3% of the total planet surface.
Contact Report 439.
I would like to ask you how many continents ERA actually consists of, and how high is the highest mountain?
ERA consists of 2 big continents, one of which you have visited. The highest mountain consists of a volcano that has been extinct for thousands of years and has a height of 26,403 meters.
When I was on ERA, I did not see much of the continent. There are certainly islands in the sea, but what about volcanoes? And further, what about seaquakes, earthquakes, and storms? I'm also interested in how old the planet ERA actually is. You, who are also a geologist, know that very well.
Of course. On ERA, there are also various islands in the seas, which we call by different names, just like on Earth. There are also active volcanoes on both very compact continents, which according to our research have remained the same for about 320 million years and have not undergone any major changes, because the tectonic movement is only moderate and does not cause major changes in the event of seaquakes and earthquakes. Moreover, the planet has already calmed down so much in its activity that seaquakes and earthquakes are no longer of great importance to us, quite contrary to those that occur on Earth. ERA itself has an age of 7.2,7,200,000 years in relation to the oldest solid matter.
From Florina, I know that the entire planet's surface is 55.7% water surface, and the total land area is 44.3%. The islands are also included in this land area, and I'm interested in what percentage of land area they have to be calculated with.
I can answer this question as well. Of the 44.3% land area, 5.7% of the total land area falls to the islands, while the 2 continents have 38.6% land area. And before you ask that, the smaller continent comprises 17.4%, of which 3.1% is mountainous, and the larger continent with 21.2% has 4.2% mountainous.
And can you say what the continents are called?
The big continent is called Gallian, which means the big one, while the small continent is called Saruma, or the fertile one. But now, Edward, my friend, we should finish our official conversation so that we can talk privately and play another game of chess.
Contact Report 441.
Around 22 years have now passed since you and Quetzal told me privately that you had comprehensive cognitions in regard to terrestrial UFOs and the massacre of animals and alleged abductions, which were disguised as the shoddy efforts of extraterrestrials. You said thereby that, in regard to this, involved in these machinations are governments, the military, as well as industrial businesses and powerful ones of finance, which constitute a special group, to which still smaller groups are also related. At that time, you promised that you would officially explain more about that when the time is ripe for that. Can one now speak publicly about that?
With the named group, it concerns a worldwide branching from governments, the military, industrial groups, secret services, paramilitary, and powerful ones of finance, as you correctly said. Those in the know and contributors are only certain elements of the same, who profit greatly, financially and power politically, from their secret machinations, for which reason the entire powers of the government, military, and industrial, as well as finance, are not involved in the situation and are also not informed in regard to this. The group is not organized. As such, rather is only a loose collection, whereby their interests, however, have a common form, which already since the 1920s was designed to operate a continuous, ingenious, large-scale disinformation campaign regarding the question of extraterrestrial life. The group, which is split into many small groups, has many kinds of technical possibilities at their disposal, which they employ for their evil and human misleading purposes. That started with technologies of electromagnetism to do with precision electronics and computer engineering, up to and including apparatuses through which brainwashing and the programming and altering of consciousness is evoked in humans. They even have back-engineered beam ships at their disposal, whereby in certain contexts even anti-gravity finds application. It has also occurred many times that premeditated abductions of Earth humans by extraterrestrials and the massacre of animals has been and is faked by this group. That stands partly also in connection with those illusionary and schizophrenic visions and apparent experiences of those who believe that they have had or have these kinds of real experiences. Also, wrong information and falsified pictures of alleged extraterrestrial flying devices is strategically circulated worldwide, whereby, according to our investigations, about 98% of all false pictures, films, videos, and false information is directed at moving the Earth humans to angst and terror of extraterrestrials and to engender hate and thoughts of revenge in the Earth humans. Therefore, in this way, angst, terror, and hate is stirred up against all life foreign to Earth. Especially films for cinema and television serve this purpose, as also, however, do many books which are constructed on lies and untruths and are written partly by experts in psychology and psychiatry. All this nonsense sells very well to the Earth humans because many on the search for the effective truth trust and believe this false information and these films and pictures. Angst, horror, terror, hate, and revenge always sell well, while the truth appears too banal and therefore appears uninteresting as well as not worth knowing. Only the fantastic and unreal find a place in the interests of Earth humans. 35. However, precisely that is the launching platform for the infamous machinations of the worldwide group, because, through disinformation and fear-mongering in regard to the malicious foreigners to Earth, the entire group, which reaches right around the world, derives horrendous advantages of a financial, governmental power, military power, as well as an economic form. However, precisely that is the launching platform for the infamous machinations of the worldwide group, because through disinformation and fear-mongering in regard to the malicious foreigners to Earth, the entire group, which reaches right around the world, derives horrendous advantages of a financial, governmental power, military power, as well as an economic form. The entire war, electronics and weapons industries and so forth thereby gain an enormous boost. Yet, in the worldwide group, secret paramilitary units also exist as smaller groups which carry out the same kind of operations which, however, are mostly controlled by the worldwide group. In particular, these small groups carry out premeditated abductions which are credited ostensibly to the extraterrestrials, as well as, however, also simulated appearances of alleged extraterrestrial flying craft, which are then collectively declared to be extraterrestrial UFO appearances and are often observed, photographed, and filmed by many people. Thereby, the illusion of an ostensible extraterrestrial abduction or observation of extraterrestrial flying devices is evoked. What is further to say about that is that, in this worldwide group, with all the small groups who partly also work autonomously, there exists a proper UFO trade and a subculture in regard to animal massacres and abductions and so forth. The entire thing is secretively financed through governments, the military, industrial groups, and financially powerful ones who are interested in angst, terror and hate being stirred up to their highest forms in regard to the alleged evil extraterrestrial foreigners, because they can thereby gain gigantic financial profit and advantage. It is on this basis that, in every regard, from this group, only stories, cinema and television films and observations of UFOs will be accepted and profitably exploited, which are based on everything negative and, as is becoming proverbial with the Earth humans, on the malicious and aggressive nature of the extraterrestrials. Only that which evokes angst, fear, and terror, as well as engenders hate and revenge, is accepted by the group and exploited worldwide in order to obtain enormous profit with it. Conversely, in addition to that, everything which is good and positive is vehemently slandered and is designated as a swindle, lie, and deception, as is the case with you and us, since, in keeping with the interests of the group, we are not permitted to exist, and you are not permitted to be in contact with us. Rather, you must be a liar and a fraud. So, from the group and their small groups, the Earth humans will be served up deliberately false and fear-influencing stories in regard to extraterrestrial UFOs and foreigners to Earth and their alleged horrifying machinations like, for example, painful examination contacts and animal massacres along with falsified encounters with alleged extraterrestrials. Along with profit, the whole matter also serves deeply based psychological propaganda in order to insult forms of life who are foreign to Earth and to brand them as malicious beings and to create angst, hate, revenge, and hysteria because great financial means will be thereby freed up, which serve research for the production of innovative and futuristic weapons of all kinds. Therefore, in these Earth humans, in regard to the extraterrestrial, an enemy will be psychologically, deliberately created, which does not exist, and which will, in a manner, be made into a malicious being such that the Earth humans, in their angst, will be driven to freeing up horrendous sums in order to therewith manufacture weapons against the alleged malicious invaders. Also, with these acts, various groups play off against each other, which, however, is part of a well-thought-out plan which is carried out and implemented by secret services, psychoterrorists, espionage groups, and treacherous disinformation agents, and which is underpinned by false information regarding UFOs and alleged extraterrestrials. Additionally, belonging to this plan is the invention of an imaginary extraterrestrial enemy, as well as a danger emerging from this, an enemy and a danger which naturally will have to be fought. The infamy is thereby that, first of all, everything is made ridiculous because the concerned abductees, examinees, chance contactees, and UFO observers can provide no evidence for their experiences which would withstand a real examination. Then comes the second fact, which exists in the fact that angst, terror, hate, and feelings of revenge is produced in the Earth humans, whereby then the weapons industry can be built up, and indeed especially in regard to futuristic weapons, of which the normal Earth humans have no idea, and of which they do not ever dare to dream. The entirety is thereby a well-thought-out psychological network on which the progress of the entire weapons industry and the power of the military, of the federal leadership, the finance sharks, and the industry businesses, as well as the secret services, can be built up ever further. To this end, angst, terror, hysteria, hate, and revenge is sown in regard to all foreigners from outer space. So the Earth humans become duped and financially exploited by the responsible ones of this dangerous group and their small groups, and are deliberately driven to abhor and to hate the extraterrestrial foreigners. Corresponding cinema and television films serve as especially suitable means for that. The foreigner angst, respectively, alien angst, which is thereby produced, surpasses all normal angst, and the responsible ones of the group know that precisely, for which reason they can also thereby calculate that all necessary finances flow to them, which they require for their weapon research, their weapon manufacture, their leading of wars, and desires for power, as well as for unrealistic cinema and TV films which demonize the Earth strangers. The creation of an supposed threat from extraterrestrials as well as the alien angst is, for them, a profitable matter which is operated under the shabby cloak of a federal, respectively, country security and of world peace. For the entire machinations of the group, the meanest machinations are quite good enough, which, as said, were already operating since the 1920s, and to that also belong highly developed electronic weapon systems, futuristic flying discs, Earth humans who are hypnotically and surgically converted, as well as converted in their consciousness to robots, whereby some have an appearance like the being which is called the Little Gray. On one hand, there is the dim-witted paradox that the extraterrestrial flying devices are denied and the strangers to Earth are made ridiculous or made out to be monsters by means of psychological propaganda, while, on the other hand, a financial exploitation of the peoples results through the inciting of angst, terror, hate, and revenge, and indeed thereby in that a simulation results in regard to a supposed threat from extraterrestrials. A paradox without compare, to which the question must be put, how far are the Earth humans imbued with reason and understanding that they do not recognize this paradox? The entire prearranged game of the group and their small groups, as already said elsewhere, also includes faked encounters with alleged extraterrestrials, whereby these are truly nothing other than normal Earth humans or those who have been transformed into aliens. In order then to affirm the improvised encounters with those foreign-to-Earth psychologists and other experts are pulled in into whom the wildest stories are hammered for so long until they believe the entire swindle and nonsense and employ verifiable and genuine analyses which are recorded and published in books and documentation as well as in cinema and TV films. And since, as a rule, the supposed extraterrestrials are described as horrible villains, just according to the plan of the group and their small groups, the picture of the extraterrestrial threat is powerfully incited. Thereby, not only is the slandering in regard to the real strangers to Earth always more exaggerated, as also more and more finances flow into the cash box of those who stupidly and dim-wittedly earn as a result of the entire tissue of lies and slander and thereby come by the means to reach their criminal goals. A certain part of the group has also fallen to a Christian sectarianism and to the supposed end times in such a way that hope is directed at a malicious invasion of extraterrestrials resulting on Earth, and thereby the prophesied Armageddon will become reality in which Jesus Christ celebrates his official return, and God the Father will exercise his judgment. Their delusion is therefore bound with a biblical end of the world, which, as they believe, rests on the terrible badness of the Earth humans. And in order to accelerate this divine judgment, as well as the return of Christ, they do everything in order to make the way free for that. The monstrous power of the worldwide group and their small groups, as well as the religious fanaticism, together with the cultic maintaining of the secret of the entire underhanded, degenerated, and deceptive, as well as criminal and felonious machinations, lead to malignant effects which could not be worse. These are the facts which I have to name in regard to your question.
Contact Report 445.
So I can raise a question about the way the Pleiaren dress. What I have seen in everyday life on Era in this regard was that women, children, and men dress in an appropriate moral form. So I have not seen any of them walking around half naked or even completely naked. But what does it look like when you take a bath? During a kitchen talk on the 21st of February, the following question was put to me about this, which I could not answer, because during my short visit to Era, I did not see very much, which refers to the question, nudity in public. What is the acceptable limit of clothing for the Plejaren? If you can tell me in a few words the most important things relating to that question, I would be happy to.
We Plejaren are always so fully clothed in public that there are no parts of the body freely visible that could be sexually provocative to the opposite sex. When bathing in public, a sparse bathing costume is worn, of course, but this is kept within chaste and ethical or moral limits with regard to the nakedness of the body. Therefore, it is neither customary nor permissible to wear lewd clothing in everyday life, or when bathing in public waters or in facilities intended for that purpose, nor to go half naked or completely naked. Semi or fully nakedness is only given in an intimate manner in living communities or special friendships, but never in public. In the case of special friendships, it should be noted that half or full nudity is only justified if the friendship of both sexes exists in a purely platonic form without any sexual intent. Morality has a very high value for us Plejaren, which is why the ethical forms are strictly maintained and cultivated in every relationship, whereby, of course, prostitution of any form is frowned upon and prohibited by law.
In communities, are there any taboos or rules?
There can be no question of that, because private life is inviolable in every respect when it takes place within the framework of legislation.
By that I mean that a community is run in all things legal, according to a specific community law. So there must be no violations of the rights of cohabitation in any form whatsoever. It should be remembered that this applies to both same-sex and opposite-sex partnerships, right? Besides, I suppose that this legislation has nothing to do with the state laws.
You see everything in the right way. If you feel up to it, we can talk a little more over a game of chess.
In private. That is convenient. Good. Here's the game.
Contact Report 446.
Last Sunday I watched a program on TV which talked about electronic technology, which will be common on Earth in 2070. It was quite interesting, because it showed a lot of things that you also had in the past, before you extended everything concerning the operation and control of devices, apparatus, spacecraft, machines, holographic vision, communication and robots, etc., to pure mind control. Actually, we have never officially talked about it, or at least only rarely, the reason being that it would have sounded too futuristic and fantastic. But now that the Earthlings are broadcasting such information programs on television about future electronic technology, I suppose we can talk about it too, can't we? In our core group, the whole thing is not a secret, but outwardly we have not let it be known much that all your technical and electronic operations are no longer done manually, but purely with mental vibrations, so that all possible operations and circuits, etc., on apparatuses, devices, weapons, and all kinds of machines, etc., are done purely with mental vibrations. However, no holographic control panels are used in this process, which would still have to be operated by finger touch, as was shown, for example, in the program in question. In your case, the whole thing works through a central computer, which receives all thought vibrations and converts them into corresponding functions, as Quetzal once explained to me when I was at his home. Although you can operate everything by hand, because everything is equipped for it, you only use it if you want to, or if there is a breakdown, but breakdowns are completely impossible, because your technology is perfectly sophisticated and can independently detect and repair potential damage before it occurs.
Our technology in this regard is actually very highly developed and seems really futuristic to Earth humans, so it is perhaps not good that you have talked about it now anyway. The reality of all our technology in every respect is much higher than what you have explained in your words, as you know. The whole thing, in every respect, is not yet imaginable for the Earth human, and therefore not comprehensible and not to be understood.
But now I would like to ask a question about your handling of weapons in connection with the population. It is a question that has interested me and others for a long time, although I have never asked about it. But what I want to do now is this. Firstly, are all your weapons designed as working tools, whereby I only mean the ones you carry with you or which are simply considered to be handguns, like handguns in our country?
All weapons in this regard, as well as all other small and large weapons, are also designed as working tools of various kinds. The type of use as a tool is, for example, the lifting and transportation of heavy weights or of objects and goods, in that anti-gravity is generated by the weapons or by the working device which facilitates the lifting, moving, and transportation of loads. The devices are also used to generate heat, cold or fire, etc., if required, as well as to dig up earth, to fuse metals, glass, synthetic materials, and many other materials with each other, also in such a way that, for example, metal can be fused with glass, with stone, synthetic materials, and other materials. There are many possibilities in this respect, as well as in the use of our weapons as working tools. Of course, we also possess exclusive working devices, working robots and working apparatus of every possible kind, but which would appear futuristic to the Earth humans if I were to describe them as such and in their function.
I am aware of that, but I have no idea of the full extent of its possible uses. Of course, I am aware that your weapons can be used as such, with various forms of weapon energy, and that they can shoot tiny energy projectiles of great penetrating and explosive power. As I know from Manara, Simyase, Askit, and Quetzal, although I myself was once allowed to do shooting exercises with such an old weapon, you only have energy-based weapons that only shoot energies and energy projectiles, but no more material projectiles. We call them ray guns.
That is true. The energies are of various kinds, as are the energy projectiles, which are much more effective than all the material projectiles of earthly weapons of any kind known to you.
Heat rays, cold rays, rays with an anesthetic or lethal effect, then also electromagnetical oscillations and energy projectiles, etc. The weapons and the associated working tools are not operated mechanically and not manually, but only by thought vibrations, as I know.
This also corresponds to the facts. Every weapon and all the possibilities of using it for work purposes, etc., can only be used through thought vibrations that are tuned to the thought patterns of the person to whom the weapon belongs. Second and third persons can therefore under no circumstances use a weapon once it has been adjusted to the thought vibrations of a particular person, not even as a working tool.
You once explained to me that in your country weapons are also used for sporting purposes, such as marksmanship or simply for personal enjoyment. What about the possession and carrying of weapons, which are without exception designed as energy weapons? I believe that weapons should only be in the hands of humans who can be absolutely certain that they will never cause harm. This would, however, require thorough psychological tests to ensure that the person to whom a weapon is entrusted never misuses it. This would have to be done not only in the civilian, but also in the military sphere, and this would have to continue until the man of the earth in general has reached the point where he lives his life according to the creative natural laws and commandments, as is the case with you.
Our ancestors already had your idea, who acted within the framework you mentioned, until one day our folks were ready to cultivate their world of thoughts and feelings, as well as their way of acting according to the laws of creation, from which the state of our present way of life has resulted in a comprehensively responsible form. These absurdities are completely impossible for us, because our evolution of consciousness has already reached a level several thousand years ago that is far above these inhuman primitivities. Thus, weapons are not intended to kill, but only in an extreme emergency when there is no other possibility of self-defense. Possible conflicts, which, however, have not occurred among our races for thousands of years, which may arise among foreign races and in which we may become involved, we settle by force of arms only when circumstances require it, but only with stunning effects, because we consider killing to be contrary to creation in relation to the teachings of the Spirit. Only in the very first emergency of self-defense against a human being would the use of a deadly weapon be considered for us. This order also applies with regard to the killing of animals, so that we do not know any hunting as it is practiced by terrestrial human beings. Only in extreme emergencies would we kill low animals for self-preservation in order to obtain food. However, our animal world is left to itself, therefore it regulates itself. The fact that we let the fauna, as well as the flora, lead their natural life can only be achieved by regulation, because we keep our planetary population within the limits of the natural and therefore do not allow overpopulation to occur. We cover our meat requirements by cloning or replicating living cells of animals and all kinds of creatures, which have been bred by replication for about 4,000 years, which also applies to many animals and creatures and all kinds of plant products, in addition to the fact that we also do horticulture and field cultivation for vegetables and fruits, as well as herbs and spices, etc. We also produce many kinds of materials by replication or multiplication, as you once called this process. But as far as the possession of weapons is concerned, it has to be said that every human being on our planet, as well as on various other worlds of our Federation, is free to possess a weapon without any permission, for whatever purpose. Many possess weapons which are used as pure working tools, but also for the pleasure of leisure time activities regarding shooting in competition, for which only electronic targets are used. And indeed, many people of our worlds possess any kind of weapons, but no mischief is done with them, just as they are not used for murder, etc. Such degeneracies as murder and manslaughter, jealousy, hatred, vengeance and revenge, war, terror and fanaticism of any kind have not been seen in our world for several millennia, nor have crimes and uprisings, etc. in any form, because all people of our worlds live according to the spiritual teaching and thus in full awareness of the fulfillment of the creative laws and commandments. In this form, our efforts are also directed towards pacifying other peoples of other planets, with whom we can contact and instruct according to our directives.
But now something else. With regard to the clothing of the Pleiaren, you said the following on the 8th of March. We Pleiaren are always so fully clothed in public that no parts of the body are freely visible which could be sexually provocative to the opposite sex. When bathing in public, of course, a sparser bathing costume is worn, but in relation to the nakedness of the body, it remains within chaste and ethical or moral limits. Therefore, it is neither customary nor permissible to wear lewd clothing in everyday life, or when bathing in public waters or in facilities intended for that purpose, nor to go half naked or completely naked. Half or full nudity is only given in an intimate way in life communities or special friendships, but never in public. In the case of special friendships, it should be noted that half or full nudity is only justified if the friendship of both sexes is in a purely platonic form, without any sexual intent. Morality has a very high value for us Pleiaren, which is why the ethical forms are strictly maintained and cultivated in every respect, which of course means that prostitution of any form is frowned upon and forbidden by law. I was asked what is meant by sexually suggestive in terms of the wearing of clothing. From my understanding, I explained that this meant the wearing of clothing which sexually displays sexual characteristics in a provocative way, or which provocatively expresses the sexual organs. In the case of women, I think this also applies to the bosom, because I have only ever seen the female sex in your country chastely cover the bosom up to the base, unless clothing is worn that reaches completely to the base of the neck. Am I going with my explanation correctly?
Your explanation corresponds to what is given.
Contact Report 447.
Billy, Kabul, Afghanistan, 16th of September 1964. In this way also the traditional prophecies of the signs in the sky have become reality, because for years these have been seen and observed at all hours of the day and night and in all parts of the world. But unfortunately they are often misinterpreted and ridiculed. But the signs of the times are fireballs, explosions of rays in the atmosphere, earth electromagnetic, atmospheric phenomena, strange clouds and misty phenomena, which appear by the hundreds like small flying objects. But there also appear jet ships or spaceships from foreign planets, which are steered by foreign people, who come here in order to indirectly enter into the evolutionary process of consciousness and into the action of consciousness through a proclaimer and his teaching of the Spirit, as well as through the teaching of truth and through the teaching of life, to intervene in the actions and work of earthly humanity because necessity demands it, because the man of the earth with his still limited consciousness forces the basic and structural elements of nature and life to react, in order to destroy in his insanity myriad life and the climate of the earth. And what is to be said further? The ray ships, that is to say spaceships of foreign intelligences from distant worlds, are no fantasy, because they exist like you and me. They are not cloud agglomerations, balloons, lightning, flocks of birds and the like, as they are so gladly called by scientists and leading authorities, by opponents of the truth or by laymen, who do not want to make themselves ridiculous with the recognition of the existence of the so-called UFOs. These unknown extraterrestrial flying objects, if they are not, as is often the case, top-secret earthly military aircraft and planes, they are real, as thousands of very good photographs, films, and reports prove. And there is no shortage of real contacts, even if there are very few of them worldwide and only a small handful in number who have spoken with extraterrestrials. They all testify to the real existence of the extraterrestrials and their objects, the beam ships. They and everything else testify to the effective existence of the extraterrestrials, even if this existence is ridiculed by the terrestrial authorities and evil antagonists as not being proven, or simply presented as a hallucination or even a lie. But for what reasons do the denying authorities and antagonists maintain very secret UFO reconnaissance groups, etc., which have the task to clarify the origin of the UFOs from space and to arm them for a possible space war or a sudden invasion from space? An idea, by the way, which corresponds to a complete nonsense, because the spacemen do not control our Earth in order to conquer or subjugate it. If they wanted to, they could have done so long ago, because their technology reaches to the fantastic compared to the earthly one, and the earthly weapons of all armies would be nothing more than a toy for them, which they would throw away as rubble and useless junk due to unworthiness and uselessness. Moreover, their very highly developed technology goes back many centuries and millennia, so that, if it had been in their will, they could have conquered the earth when it was still in antiquity, or in the dark Middle Ages, when it was growing towards its present state. But why are the authorities so eager to find out the secret of UFOs, and especially the unsolved mystery of the radiation propulsion, which makes the extraterrestrial aircraft or UFOs fly through the Earth's atmosphere at speeds of up to 100,000 kilometers per hour and more, neutralizing the gravity? So why these secret researches under exclusion of the public, when everything is supposed to be only lies and deceit? Why that? The authorities are afraid. Frightening, deadly fear, for they fear an attack from space, and for this purpose it would be urgently necessary that they themselves be in possession of ray ships and ray weapons, so that they could counter the enemy attack already in world space itself. Others, however, fear panic and rampage of the population. If they should really become aware of the existence of the extraterrestrial UFOs and their crews, because panic and rampage already rolled over the population of different countries when UFO sensational reports, so-called direct reports from the place of the event, were broadcasted over the radio stations. Direct reports, however, which did not correspond to the truth and were only sensational radio plays. The number of deaths of the population running amok went into high figures. However, the authorities, who stop practically all UFO reports, if they have real backgrounds, do not consider that the panic of the masses will be much greater one day, if the extraterrestrials should really come in masses, in order to prevent perhaps the greatest insanity of the earthly humans, and to change the face of this world for the better. If the revolutionary events, which are caused by the humans of the earth in a responsible way, roll over this world. But it is questionable whether extraterrestrials ever interfere in earthly matters in this respect, because they have directives which would only allow them to intervene under certain conditions. A real contact person, as well as reconnaissance planes and simple observers of really extraterrestrial flying machines, that is to say UFOs, are dealt with by the authorities as well as by the people and by malicious adversaries and slanderers, who insult lies and fraud and may even be imprisoned for many years in a mean way or interned in insane institutions, because, as already mentioned, the authorities are unwilling to reveal the profound truth. They do not shy away from publishing denying notes and treatises in the newspapers or from having them published by bought-in laymen, critics, opponents, and so-called experts. For these reasons, in various countries, a real contact person, of which there are not even a handful, an observer or enlightener, plays with his freedom when he takes his task seriously and tries to create enlightenment. And the few people who have or have had contact, not even a small handful, have a very difficult position, because they encounter hatred, mockery, disbelief, official intrigues, and partly church-destroying statements, as well as slander and much more.
Contact Report 448.
We Pleiaren and our Confederates live in other space-time configurations.
Contact Report 450.
Then a question regarding the Syrians, with whom you've been in contact for some time now after all. My question is based on the fact that Bernadette is working on the Nocademi Online into a brochure, in which a statement of mine from the year 1995 is also integrated. At that time, it was still the case that you were not able to maintain contact with the Syrians, but that has changed some time ago, as you explained to me. How was it that you were able to get in contact with the Syrians after all?
It is not the Syrian folks with whom we have come into contact, but our contacts take place only in remote communication form with some groups of consciously higher evolved scientists. These form our liaisons with the various governments, which are occupied by scientists who are also consciously higher evolved and who lead the peoples. We do not yet maintain personal or physical contacts because various prerequisites for this are still missing. The populations of the Syrian peoples themselves are not yet so far advanced in the evolution of consciousness that they would be equal to their scientists, and it is this fact that we cannot yet maintain official contacts with the Syrian peoples. Physical contacts are not yet possible with regard to scientists either, but nothing stands in the way of remote communication contacts, because the evolution of consciousness of scientists allows this, which is why we have opened these contacts. In the remote communicative way, we have also appealed to the Syrians' reason, so that the old persecution mania against those genetically manipulated by their primeval ancestors was abolished, which, however, had already been handed down only in ancient annals, but had long since been forgotten by today's Syrians and was only cultivated by a small group of fanatics who, like the neo-Nazis on Earth, for example, created and practiced their hatred from the old writings within themselves. But we only found out about this some time ago, just when we were able to contact various Syrian scientists by remote communication, whereby we did this because we wanted to get hold of those hateful fanatics who threatened your life for so long and called themselves the Men in Black.
But if you are now in remote communication with the Syrian scientists, then they must be really advanced in terms of consciousness development. This reminds me completely of the earlier times, when scientists were the genetic manipulators.
Then, as now in the serious regions, scientists are the rulers and the powerful ones who have the peoples under their command and give them the directions of thought. But these scientists of today are so far removed from the old forms of government that they lead the peoples in a free form, so that they too can evolve consciously, although they are still far below the level of the evolution of consciousness of the scientists. The old system of government by scientists has been maintained over very long periods of time and has only changed to its present form about 140 years ago, so it will take a long time until the peoples in general reach a higher level of evolution equal to their present scientists, whose earliest ancestors used their knowledge to bring their peoples under their power and to keep them in that power. This is no longer the case today. And as a result of the high evolutionary development of the Syrian scientists, we have been able to establish remote communications with them, which will enable us to establish physical contact with them in the near future, but which will be limited to the scientists and not extend to the peoples. So we will give development aid to scientists in every possible relationship and in every responsible way possible for us and for them, whereby the teaching of the Spirit will also be a comprehensive teaching.
Contact Report 453 in note. This contact report contains several charts which provide data on the age, birth date, planetary origin, and other information pertaining to the extraterrestrials who have been in contact with Billy.
The origin and existence of all life owes this to the basic laws of universal chemistry and physics, from which left-turning amino acids developed fundamentally for the emergence of life itself, which formed and also continue to form the main factor of the biological emergence of life as a whole in universal breadth. From this it also emerges that every form of life is planetary, chemically, physically conditioned. Consequently, this is also different from planet to planet, and has innumerable forms universe-wide and is not necessarily human-like, as you know, and as you were able to see for yourself together with us on your great journey through large parts of the universe on the most diverse worlds.
Yes, I never forget that. All the different life forms, which also included various intelligent ones that were not human-like. I would like to say, however, that despite the very great strangeness, they cannot be called monsters, just as they cannot be called human-like life forms. Some have also developed higher and higher cultures and techniques, which may seem futuristic and fantastic to Earthlings, but nevertheless corresponds to the truth. Many of the alien life forms, however, were of the animal kind, and you let me look at a great many bacterial forms under a device that I would like to call a microscope, for the sake of simplicity, because it had such a function, but has no resemblance to the devices we know. It was interesting for me to be able to determine that human life is extremely thinly spread throughout the universe, and that most life-bearing worlds carry life forms that look completely futuristic to Earthlings. And I remember you explaining that human life forms found their widespread expansion in the universe on various occasions only because they created the technical means to be able to emigrate to other worlds through space travel. I also still hear your words today when you said that life forms existed on practically all planets, comets, meteors, and celestial bodies, as well as in the nebulae and gases in the universe, even if, as a rule, they were only bacterial life forms except on planets. And as you have let me see, such life forms also exist on the moons of our SOL satellites, as well as on these themselves.
Contact Report 454 Zerul. We are triplet siblings, and we are here on behalf of Florina and Injana, and as you say correctly, we use language converters, because we do not know your language. This here is my sister Zeruella, and she here is my sister Zaruala. Of course, we are 122 years old, and our home world is Era. Zeruella is the firstborn, I am the secondborn, and Zeruala is the thirdborn.
It is interesting that you have three names that almost all sound the same. Zeruela. In our family, we can look back on many generations that have always borne names of this kind. Do you mean the names themselves, or just names beginning with the letter X? Zeruela. My words refer to the initial letter X, but not to the name itself. According to our annals, no other name has been used in the traditional lineage of our family for more than 6,000 years, whose initial letter would not have been an X. And what about the surname we call family names here? Do they also begin with the letter X? Ptah once told me that also bears his surname. Zeruel. That is correct. And these surnames have always started with an X from the male side of the descendants, because the family name of the father, Zerianam, is taken over and carried on. This, while female descendants change family names, because when marriage alliances are formed, they are attached to the male family name of the spouse.
Contact Report 457.
And in regard to the three groups that have been traveling around our world, do you have any new insights on that?
As I mentioned before, we are no longer concerned with them. They are indeed active in the whole earthly airspace and also in the outer Earth envelopes. Furthermore, it seems that they have no knowledge of each other. As I explained to you before, just as they have absolutely no knowledge of our presence, although we leave it at that. Because, as we could clearly see with our latest technology, which we received from the Sonairon, their technology and their behavior, as well as their evolution of consciousness, is still very much in need of development. And this although they are masters of space travel and probably also of time travel.
Contact Report 463.
There are programs on television which explain that many private people, also well-known scientists, are sending messages with big antennas purposefully out into space in order to make extraterrestrials aware of the Earth and the Earthlings. What do you think about this?
This nonsense is as familiar to me as the enterprise that was started decades ago from the U.S.-American side with the golden, round plate that contains a lot of information about the Earth and the earthly humanity, for the purpose that human exo-life forms should become aware of the Earth and Earth humans if they can get hold of the information. The whole thing is not only nonsensical, but also dangerous, for all sorts of unpleasant things can happen both through the information plate and through the messages that are sent wildly out into the world space. It is a fact that not only on Earth exists an unpeaceful and warlike humanity, but also on foreign worlds. And if such evil-minded life forms catch the earthly messages and are powerful in space travel, then this can have very bad consequences for the Earth and Earth humanity. And that also when several or many decades or even a century or more pass until such nonsensical messages are caught and then spaceships are sent to Earth to wreak havoc here, whereby even mankind could be exterminated. There are life forms powerful enough for space travel in all galaxies suitable for it, whereby these are very far scattered, but have created space possibilities as diverse as they also have the necessary technology to get to Earth. Time is not an issue for certain human space-capable life forms, because they reach old age, so they can easily travel to Earth for 40, 60, 100 or more years, if their technology also allows them to do so. And indeed, there are dangerous contemporaries among them, as you say in each case, who can bring destruction and ruin, which they also do in their home systems.
Not pleasing, but the firecrackers who send messages out into space can't be proven wrong, because they claim that the radio and TV shows that our broadcast constantly reach aliens and draw their attention to Earth. Consequently, the messages they send out are no more and no less in the same frame.
This is of correctness to a certain extent, but to send out targeted messages with exact information into the space of the world is more dangerous.
Contact Report 467.
You can. But today I would like to talk to you again in a very private way, where we can also enjoy a game of chess.
Contact Report 469.
Thus I will begin with us actual humanoids, whereby I must explain that all life-form species, which I have to call, show human or human-like forms in shape, as well as forms mixed with their other species, whereby the only human-like beings are not actual humanoids, but just different and embodying two different species. All of them, however, are capable of a conscious development of consciousness, have their own cultures and languages as well as techniques, whereby some of the ones we know are also masters of space travel and belong to our Federation. All of them, at least those who belong to our Federation, are peaceful beings and have no warlike or violent ambitions. 1. Humanoids are human beings in the form in which we Pleiaren and the Earth humans, as well as many of us, are allies of our Federation, to which, however, other life forms also belong, which cannot be called humanoids in our sense, because they are of a completely different kind, but nevertheless consciously capable of evolution and have developed their own cultures and techniques, as well as languages, as I already explained. 2. Amphiboids are, in terms of form, life forms of mixed human and aquatic animal nature, which can live both in water and on land, as well as in a climate that is heavily water-filled. Asina, Image 1, Image 2 Makort, for example, and her people are among them. Note: see Contact Reports 90, 91, and 93 for information on Billy's first encounter with Asina. 3. Reptiloids are life forms of mixed human and reptilian form, their bodies being covered with scales. 4. Insectoids are life forms of mixed human and insect-like form, their skin showing chitin-like characteristics. 5. Sauroids are life forms of mixed human and sauropod-like form with a skin similar to elephant skin. 6. Primatoids are life forms of mixed human and primate-like form with a hairy body, but in a stronger form than the terrestrial humanoid or earth humans. 7. Condycoids are in form of life forms actual humanoids, but with the ability to move by levitation. 8. Pteropoids are life forms with human and bird-like body, with long neck, face, and beak-like mouth. 9. Hydroids are life forms with human and fish-like bodies, whose actual life element is water, which they can also leave for a longer period of time. 10. Thermoids are in shape humanoid life forms with a human-like body, whose own life element is hot areas with very high temperature. 11. Frigoroids are in form humanoid life forms with human bodies, whose life elements are very cold areas with very low temperatures below zero. 12. Aeroids are in form humanoid life forms with human body, whereby they are poison gas breathers, and their life element are various gas atmospheres. 13. Acoroids are in form humanoid life forms with a human body, but their skin is covered by a fine layer of acid, like for example the trilans. 14. Fluoroids are life forms with human-like and diverse plant bodies. 15. Centauroids are life forms with partly human and partly equine bodies. 16. Faunoids are life forms with partly human and partly various ungulate bodies. 17. Cheruboids are in shape and weight very light human life forms, equipped with feathered wings through which they can fly. 18. Seraphoids are life forms very light in shape and weight, partly human and partly animal, equipped with feathered wings through which they can fly. These are the people we know of various genera and species, that is to say, races of human and human animal-like life forms, which I name in the above-mentioned way, so that Earth humans can also get an idea of them. Our names are, of course, of a different kind, but they correspond to the value of the names mentioned. Basically, however, it is to be said that all the life forms mentioned, which are the same as human beings, are also beings who in their whole or in part resemble our human forms, to which they have changed over millions of years. Apart from this, however, their appearance in terms of the appearance of their skin and its excrescences is different from that of us who call ourselves pure humanoids. But since several of the life forms I have mentioned are probably humanoid in appearance, but different in the outer appearance of their skin and its outgrowths, we call them peregrine humanoids, as has been explained to you earlier. This term means as much as foreign humanoids. All mentioned life forms are therefore in their essence humanoids, which also have a humanoid spirit form and are part of a conscious evolution of consciousness. The origin of the peregrine humanoids is not the same as with us pure humanoids, but their development into peregrine humanoids has taken place in a similar way as with the pure humanoids. Their primeval forms were very small and only gradually developed into larger life forms, which in turn were subject to multiple changes until they became the beings they are today. Such a course of evolutionary form has also taken place in relation to us purely humanoids, because our course of evolution has also brought about various changes until finally the purely humanoid human being was created.
Contact Report 472 Safarina, the female extraterrestrial. I studied geology and geophysics, astronomy, the art of pragmatics and scientific cybernetics in relation to biological, technical and sociological systems. I also carry out the activity of a controller for various tasks. My age is not a secret, so I can tell you my age at 236 years. I do not have a life partner, but I do have a female companion. With her I have maintained a very loving alliance for 73 years. Contact Report 475.
In a direct democracy, the parliament, the rulers and the authorities, etc., are no more and no less than mere executors of the will of the people, by which alone it is determined what shall and shall not be. That is what we Pleiaren and all our federates understand by an open democracy. And in such one it must also not be that the supreme rulers, a parliament or other governing bodies propagandize for any things and decisions, but rather present only elaborated plans and proposals to the people in such a way that all advantages and disadvantages of the project are mentioned to them, after which the people have to weigh everything up at their own discretion and make the decision by an election without partiality.
Contact Report 476.
If something breaks, how long can you keep fixing things?
First of all, for every achievement, no matter what kind it is, small or big, there is only one form of production, respectively, one brand worldwide, as you say. And secondly, our production is geared to ensuring that repairs can be made to small appliances and equipment, etc., in the event of damage occurring for 70 years, because components can be produced for this purpose during this period if required. For large devices and large apparatus, such as our planetary and space-worthy flying apparatus, etc., a period of 350 years is specified. We are careful to use as few resources of our and other planets as possible, and also to take care of the environment. Waste products are therefore avoided, so everything is designed so that everything can be recycled.
One brand of product per product. I think that makes sense. Yes, this is only possible because you produce everything, and everything of use on a social basis, and do not know of money anymore. Therefore, everything is produced by the people, and every human being receives everything necessary of every kind, who he needs or what he simply wants.
A fact that also contributes to the fact that there is not crime in our country because every person can get everything he needs or wants at any time. This system, however, requires that means of payment are no longer needed, so we also no longer have them.
And what about garbage and litter and so forth? When I think of the packaging mania that exists here on Earth, which generates billions of tons of waste and billions of dollars, I am terrified.
That is not the case here, because all goods are handed out to the population without packaging, with a few exceptions, where the packaging decays after a long time of self-decomposition and decomposes back into its natural components. If it concerns materials that do not completely disintegrate back into their original components, such as things made of materials such as metal, glass, crystal, and plastic, etc., which we of course also produce, then these are collected completely and sent for recycling. This also happens with devices and equipment, etc., which can no longer be used, so we do not have any wear and tear on any materials. Our entire population is careful to observe this order so that no one produces waste, rubbish, because otherwise it would be impossible to keep nature and the entire environment clean.
Then you have not got any incinerators or garbage disposal plants or garbage dumps in nature.
No, we do not have that, because such things like money and crime are also phenomena that only occur in cultures that are still in a state of low progress. The population of the planet Akart belong to our Federation, as well as also the population of the worlds of Proxima Centauri and others from there and other local regions of space around there, from which several of them have come to the Earth. However, all of these worlds belong in our space-time configuration. Consequently, they also possess several of our technologies. Like, for example, that technology with which they are able to bridge the time barrier and come into your space-time configuration. The population of Akart, however, no more exists since the year 2007, because in the only 32 years from 1975 to 2007, their total population had increased to 34,034,000 when through their stupidity. Like also is apparent with the terrestrial population, nature and the climate were completely destroyed when, in the end, an oxygen collapse and an atmosphere collapse occurred, as you have described this. As a result, all life was wiped out on that planet.
However, you still have advised and helped them, as you said at that time.
Unfortunately, our advice was just disregarded and not followed, as well as also our help was declined. Only then, when there was nothing more to give, the humans came to think things over, but then it was already too late. As a result, we only could just save as many humans as possible, unfortunately only 116 million, and resettle them to other worlds.
Contact Report 505.
So then, first, a question about Mount Shasta, respectively, about the distant descendants of extraterrestrials who lived there, which I talked about several times with your daughter Simya-se, but also with you. Quetzal once told me outside of an official conversation that you took all the inhabitants from Mount Shasta and on the Aleutian Islands and in Alaska.
That is correct. We have tried to get all the inhabitants of the three places to return to their peoples, with whom they have always been in contact. We gave them the reasons for our own withdrawal from the earth, which led to their withdrawal. Their dwellings and all the trappings have returned them to their original earthly state, so that there is no longer anything to indicate their former presence. The process in this regard was the same as in the Pyramid of Giza and on Mars.
I understand. So then you did not take them away yourselves. but they left of their own accord with those who came from their original homeland, but simply on your advice. I have misunderstood something. But can you tell me where these human beings actually belonged, respectively to which people?
That is not a secret. They were distant descendants of a lineage of the old Lyrians, to which they also returned.
Then they are, so to speak, related to you, the Pleiaren, because the Pleiaren peoples came out of the old Lyrians.
That is correct.
Thank you. So there is now nothing in Mount Shasta, Alaska, or the Aleutian Islands that indicates their former presence.
That is also correct.
And may we know what you told them that they went away?
That is not a secret. The reason was that we too had abolished our stations on Earth and returned them to their natural original state. But it was important that we had included the inhabitants of all three places in our protection, which was not given after we had left. So a further stay on Earth would have been too dangerous for them.
Contact Report 511.
But I am now interested in whether, since my last question regarding other extraterrestrials who do not belong to you Pleiaren or to your Federation, any other extraterrestrial flying apparatuses have flown into earthly space in the meantime?
Since we completed our surveillance technology for objects entering or entering the Earth's space years ago, and are therefore able to locate and register even the smallest objects, there have been no entries of unearthly flying apparatuses that do not belong to us Pleiaren or to members of the Federation. It is also not to be assumed that there will be any more such foreign incursions in the foreseeable future. And what has happened in the last 300 years with such flights into the earthly space has found its reason in the fact, as we have clarified in the meantime, that really all extraterrestrials who came to Earth found their way to Earth by some unforeseen coincidence, or in 2 cases, by coordinate information. The fact that the way from extraterrestrials to the SOL system and finally to Earth led in some cases was either due to uncontrollable coincidences or due to coordinates received, etc. Some also came to Earth through curiosity, aberration or by accident, after they unintentionally or intentionally entered the SOL system. However, most of the entries took place because of uncontrollable coincidences and also because the Earth was discovered. There were also flights into Earth from the Alpha Centauri area when the SOL system was approached, and of course, Earth was discovered and explored. So it was usually a rare coincidence that extraterrestrials other than us, the Pleiaren and our federated ones, came to Earth. Only in 2 cases aliens came to Earth via the coordinates given by very distant Nocademian descendants. There were not any other strangers to the Earth other than those who came to Earth through the coordinates and uncontrollable coincidences. So the visitors were not those who flew to Earth as a special destination, with 2 exceptions. But we Pleiaren and our Federation and the ancient Lyrians are excluded from this, because even our very distant ancestors knew the SOL system and the Earth, and so they visited the Earth millions of years ago.
This is familiar to me, because they came to the SOL system because of the moon, whose path they followed when it blasted out of their space-time structure through a dimensional gate into our space-time structure and settled on Earth. And it is also clear to me that there is not extraterrestrial human life at every corner of space, and that extraterrestrial human beings are not to be found in every corner of the universe, as the human beings on Earth are led to believe by science fiction films. There are indeed billions of solar systems in which there are also planets, but those that carry human life, which is also highly developed and capable of space travel, are very rare in our Dern universe. That is why, as you once said, your Federation is spread out over hundreds of millions of light years in your space-time structure, because the human beings are scattered in the vast expanse of space and it is not densely populated with humans. Often there are dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of light years between human-inhabited worlds, and also only a few of the human beings on these inhabited planets are capable of space technology. The same applies to our space-time structure, and consequently also to the fact that there are not masses of human beings on the planets, but only a few of them in the vastness of our own or any other galaxy. For this reason alone, it is crazy to claim that aliens from this or that constellation would come to Earth from this or that constellation, simply to make some nonsensical religious and sectarian speeches and conversations and to give divine advice, etc. This apart from the absurdity of the fact that there is no evidence of such alleged contacts between aliens and the human beings of Earth, neither material nor photos and films.
That is indeed the case.
Do you know anything about whether any aliens still know the coordinates of the SOL system, or even Earth, apart from those who already came here?
We don't know, but I also have to say that all extraterrestrials who came to Earth were more or less well-versed in space technology, which cannot be taken for granted. The majority of unearthly human races are still not capable of space travel. And others who have mastered space travel are only able to move within their own solar systems and cannot leave them. Interstellar space travel is extremely rare, as is the possibility of moving through dimensional gates into another space-time continuum, as we do and can also create such gates. And it must also be said that those who came to Earth from other space-time continuums could not deliberately create and fix the necessary dimensional gates, because in fact they were only able to move into this dimension of the Dern universe through momentary natural cracks in their space-time continuum. Others, on the other hand, who came from the Dern dimension, only came to Earth because they could create and use space-time gates, which is also a rarity.
Contact Report 513.
I still have some time left because I have taken some time off, because I still want to enjoy chess with you.
Contact Report 516.
Hello, Edward, here I am. Unfortunately, I am 4 minutes late. But I like the music that comes out of your computer.
It also suits me.
Contact Report 519.
It is now almost 10 years since you said that you have come across something very interesting in relation to the investigations of the various extraterrestrials who have come to Earth in the last 300 years. But you wanted to say something more about this only when you know all about it, for sure. Is it about what I asked you to clarify some 30 years ago? Do you have any detailed information about it now?
Yes, we have this information, and it is based on many years of very laborious research and clarification. After 30 years of investigation and research, it has now been proven with absolute certainty that all known flights into Earth's airspace and landings on Earth by Earth foreigners have only occurred because all those who found their way to Earth had exact or halfway exact coordinates of the Lyra and Centaurus systems and the SOL system at their disposal, which they did not evaluate until thousands of years after their receipt and recovery. The interesting thing is that for all Earth foreigners who came to Earth, these data were based on very old and millennia-old records, which were based on connections with peoples from the very extensive Nocademian line. And the fact that all these records have been analyzed by a wide variety of Earth foreigners' civilizations over the last 300 years was based on very old regulations, which were designed to ensure that these records were found and analyzed in more recent times, and that the respective Earth foreigners flew to the elaborated coordinates. The whole purpose of all this was to enable everyone to find their way to our Federation and unite with us. This was also the case for those who came from the Centaurus systems and from other areas. Some of the Earth foreigners who came to Earth, due to errors in coordination, strayed directly to Earth instead of reaching the Lyra system. Others were looking for the planet Malona Phaeton, which they did not find, but came to Earth in their search. Others were looking for Mars, but found it inanimate and finally came to Earth. But there were also those who suffered an accident, including the Gilgamesh spacecraft of the very early days, as well as the spacecraft that caused the Tunguska catastrophe. With one exception, all Earth foreigners who came to Earth in the last 300 years are now part of our Federation. And interestingly, all of them have proven that their early ancestors were, as I explained, connected with earlier peoples of the Nakadimion line, from whom they have received records of the coordinates of the systems mentioned. They used this data to get to the Lyra and Centaurus systems and to the SOL system. If they hadn't had these coordinates from the ancient records, they would also never have come to Earth. So they only came here to your homeworld Earth by certain coincidences.
Asina and her people, what about them? Note: see contact reports 90, 91, and 93 for information on Billy's first encounter with Asina.
They also belong to it in the same way.
So then everything was predetermined. When was that?
The whole thing leads back to the time 389,000 years ago. Even then, everything was determined and directed in such a way that everything is fulfilled in modern times and especially in the modern age. And further, it is to be said that apart from us, Pleiaren, and our Federation, no other Earth foreigners are on Earth or even penetrated or entered the Earth's airspace. Therefore, no Earth humans can have contact with any Earth foreigners. And all those Earth foreigners who came to Earth by the coincidence of the coordinates of the ancient Nocodemian peoples belong to our Federation today, and they too do not maintain contact with Earth humans.
But what if unknown flying objects are observed?
If they are Earth foreigners flying apparatuses, then they can only be those of us Pleiaren or of our federated ones. Otherwise, they are exclusively earthly unknown flying apparatuses, like secret aircraft of futuristic design, etc., as they are constructed in secret aircraft construction factories, mainly in Area 51 in the USA, but also in South America, Russia, China, and Canada.
Is this really all clear and real?
Absolutely.
This once again triggers angry cries and howls among the UFO believers, the ufologists, and the alleged contactees, which in turn makes me a snail again.
This will be so, because the deceivers, liars, swindlers, and charlatans regarding alleged contacts with Earth foreigners, as well as the UFO believers in general, and especially those who boast of being experts in ufology, do not want to understand that apart from us, the Pleiaren and our federated ones, no other Earth foreigners come to Earth, and also that those who came here in former times found their way to Earth only by means of old coordinate records which led back to connections with old Nocademian peoples. Only such Earth foreigners and future Earth followers have come to Earth, but never any others from foreign galaxies and solar systems that did not have the coordinates handed down. So others did not reach Earth, as alleged contactors lie and claim.
This, apart from the skrills and the bioorganic flying objects and the future of Earth from other dimensions, as you say. If all the many claims about contacts between the human beings of Earth and extraterrestrials were true, then Earth would be teeming with extraterrestrials.
That is correct.
Contact Report 530.
When I was on Era, I saw huge apple plantations, with trees and apples much bigger than here on Earth. The biggest apples I saw, according to your explanations, weighed several kilos. The apples, I was taught by Quetzal and you, are used as food and medicine. I am wondering what you do with apples from a medical point of view.
Highly concentrated food is made from them, and because of their high concentration, they are also effective in a completely natural way from a medical point of view. Apart from the stalk, no waste products are produced during the production process, which means that every apple is fully utilized, including the skin, the seeds, and the core.
Similar or identical to our food supplements.
No. These are pure, highly concentrated foods that contain all the natural substances of apples, but no chemical ingredients, etc., which are used as normal food in daily use. Every human being on Era eats such products every day.
Liquid or solid?
Both possibilities are possible, whereby the high concentration of the food corresponds absolutely only to pure fruit. The same is also possible with vegetables.
And the nutritious cubes I ate on my great journey and on Era, are they also of a similar kind? 1 or 2 or 3 cubes were enough to satisfy my hunger.
They are. The high concentrate is specially cold-dried and pressed for this purpose, so that a cube of about 2 cow 2x2 centimeters will contain about 3 grams of apple high concentrate, which corresponds to a raw apple weight of about 500 grams.
This corresponds to about 3 large apples as we have them here on Earth. By cold-dried, you mean a kind of freeze-dried or...
That is so, but the process is, of course, in line with our more advanced technology.
But you also eat fresh and raw apples and other fruit, as I saw in your large-scale room.
Self-evident.
We use chemical spraying for apples and also for all other fruits and vegetables, which is not the case with you, I know.
Contact Report 532.
Then my next question, which does not apply to the future, with those of whom you of course do not want to have contact. But my question does apply to the unknown to you, respectively, to the unknown to you Earth foreigners, of whom we have spoken about in our last conversation. I have indeed no contact with them, and also do not want to get in touch with them, yet I think that you nevertheless know something about them, for I can myself imagine that you do not put aside the matter without observation and thought.
That is correct. Yet we do not concern ourselves too much with it. For the technology on which they operate, as well as their conduct, does not correspond to prerequisites, which would be important in accordance with our directives, which would allow us to enter into contact with them. From their technology and their behavior alone, we can infer their state of consciousness, which does not correspond to one that would allow us to contact them.
Their technology must, however, still be well developed, for they are able to come from somewhere in space to the Earth. And with their conduct...
Admittedly, this is actually so, yet the aliens are, regarding their consciousness development and their fallible conduct patterns, contrary to the inviolableness and the dignity of all life in exactly the same way, still are not sufficiently developed enough, as also not their technology. As a result, we are not able to arrange them in accordance with our directives into the important security stages, which are predetermined by us as our directives. And regarding their conduct, many matters do not correspond to a consciousness development which would allow a contact starting and association with them in accordance with our directives. There were and are many incidents caused by them, which are not able to be reconciled with a healthy and higher consciousness ability development, as well as also not with various creative, natural, predetermined laws and regulations. Despite the higher developed technology through which they are able to cope with travel through space, they are on this matter not much further developed than terrestrial scientific field-skilled workers, who, as a rule, all live just according to Earth human laws and regulations, while at the same time, they, however, still follow little, or in general nothing, in the exercising of the creative, natural, predetermined laws and regulations. Thus also the integrity of the body as well as the psyche of humans, animals and creatures, which is given by these laws and regulations, is not considered by them just as it is also the case with the Earth humans.
And is this the case with all 3 groups unknown to you?
Yes, with these 3 groups is, however, to understand here that it concerns a matter about them of 3 different factions, who, however, all together build a unity, thus belonging together, and in accordance with our observations of only one origin, however, who have different areas of responsibility on the Earth. Of three groups is only generally to speak, because our realizations of these Earth foreigners is that they are clearly organized for certain tasks in three different terrestrial areas, in which they become evident and are variously working. So one group moves entirely in the west continental area of Antarctica over Tierra del Fuego, and all Americas with various islands up to Alaska and to the Arctic. Then another group moves in entirely Europe with Africa and all islands, with Greenland, Eurasia, Arabia, Madagascar, and the Arctic, as well as various islands. And finally, the third group moves entirely in Asia and Oceania with all islands, as also in Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand, and in a part of Antarctica.
Thus also here once again a misunderstanding, for we always thought that with the three groups may have meant three different Earth alien races, which would come from different worlds.
That was actually a misunderstanding, hence, it is good that you have again brought up this matter.
And were you able to find out where these Earth foreigners come from, respectively, where their origin is?
Regarding the discovering of their origin planet, we have ourselves tried, yet I cannot give any information about it, because up till now we do not know of this, and also on account of the lack of their consciousness and technological development, do not want to enter into association with them in order to find out. There must arise regarding this an unwanted foreordination, which however is doubtful, because we ourselves in no way seek a contact with them, as I already explained. Hence, we also do not watch their exact activities, but only take notice of them, which arises through unintentional observations, etc. And as far as the number of Earth foreigners is concerned, such were we able up to now only to observe a few of them, although all of these, however, were clearly registered by us.
However, you still would be able to follow the chaps secretly, in order to find their home world if they would currently leave the Earth.
Up to now, we were not able to register any excursions by them from Earth space. As a result, we presume that they are permanently stationed here.